Awesome. So this month of July in the Centers for Spiritual Living, we're talking about truth, speaking truth to circumstance. And my talk title today is The Wise Warrior. And I have a confession to make first. I'm a work in progress. How about you? Yes. You know, I've been a religious scientist for 26 years, and I still can come up with something and catch myself of an old belief running the show that I thought I healed way back there, and then boop, it pops up. And yet, I continue to study and practice and use my warrior spirit, my wise warrior spirit, to practice the principles that we teach and apply those truth principles to my life. Yeah, I'm a work in progress. So the definition of a warrior is a brave or experienced soldier or fighter, a champion or hero, a trooper. We often associate warrior with war. But a wise warrior has courage, has direction, a spiritual warrior, a peaceful warrior. Remember in the 60s, Dan Millman wrote a book called The Peaceful Warrior, I think. It was a great book. As a wise warrior, we can be a practitioner of truth because a wise warrior is anchored in peace and poise. A wise warrior is focused on what needs to happen without needing to fight. Hear that? How many of us fight against something? We don't have to like it, but there's ways to stand in our power with courage. Yeah. As a wise warrior, I stand in the power and wholeness of spirit that I am. That's my affirmation. I stand in the power and wholeness of spirit that I am. So in yoga, I have been a yoga teacher for a zillion years. We have what's called the warrior pose. Some of you are nodding, you know about the warrior pose. Well, there are actually 3 warrior poses, but the one most people know is this one. Look familiar? Okay. So the warrior pose is about anchoring our hips and legs and feet into the earth, getting centered, and while at the same time drawing energy up the Sushumna channel in a balanced way. So we're not leaning to the past or reaching too much into the future. Notice how unstable those two are. But we're present. We're right there, present, with our focus, our drishti, our gaze, directing outward, but recognizing our inner strength. Now, this warrior pose can become the worrier pose. Is everybody looking at me? I wonder if I'm doing this right. Do I do anything right in my life? I wonder what I'll have for lunch. How long do I have to be here? The warrior pose. I've taught that to my class many times, and we all laugh about it. But we all do it. We all have that part in our head that goes off on some tangent that might not even be true, right? So worry is usually due to a fear of uncertainty, of the unknown. Our minds go to the what ifs, and that cycle can be consuming and not good for our well-being. Unless, of course, that what if is from a higher level of consciousness. What if I figured this out? What if there is really a divine solution behind this challenge I have? What if I can relax and feel safe? So there's that aspect of it too. And that happened to me this past week. As I said, I'm a work in progress. I had an opportunity. I taught my movement workshop last Saturday, and it was like 100 degrees that day, like it is today. And I had this thought in the back of my head, way back there, oh, nobody's going to come. And I kind of ignored it and I brushed it away. Well, that morning, I had people signed up. I had about 6 people signed up. And that morning, I got a text notification. And as soon as I heard that text, what did I do? I went like in and I contracted and I said to myself, oh, see, they're not going to come. I opened the text and it was Beth who wanted to come and she didn't sign up. Thank you, Beth. And I looked at the text and I was like, oh. And then all of a sudden I like went boing. Look what I just did. I wasn't anticipating my good. And how often do I tell all of you to anticipate your good? And my first thought was, nobody's going to come. So I laughed. I just laughed and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm still learning. Yay, I'm still learning. I caught it quick enough. I blessed myself. I said to myself, no, I don't believe that anymore. I mentioned that last Sunday in my talk. You can say that to yourself. No, I don't think that way anymore. So I had a little talk with myself. No, Suzanne, you don't think that way anymore. You think in expansive terms. And I have to tell you, it just felt so free. Can anybody relate to that? Yeah, some people are nodding their head. Because being a warrior, a wise warrior, and not a worrier, puts the confidence and power back in you. Back in you. So whatever happens, you're able to deal with it. A warrior triumphs. A worrier cowers. And the notion of strength and resiliency is so empowering. We can develop more confidence and rise above whatever life gives us. If we choose. If we choose. I stand in the power and wholeness of the Spirit that I am. I invite you to say that after me. I stand in the power and wholeness.
I stand in the power and wholeness
of Spirit that I am.
Of Spirit that I am.
Breathe that in. That's your truth. As Einstein reminded us, we can't solve a problem at the level of consciousness that created the problem. Right? We know that. So we must change our thinking, our consciousness, our perspective, our beingness. Change needs to manifest in the outer, maybe, but it begins in the inner. Making war on the outer circumstances just empowers those circumstances. And in this study of the science of mind, as religious scientists, we know that behind all circumstances, we affirm that no matter how upsetting it is, there's a divine presence behind it. There's a power, there's a loving presence behind it. But we have to call it forth. Yeah. The Greek philosopher Plotinus said, I do not argue, I contemplate. And as I contemplate, I let fall the seeds of thought into the mirror of mind, which then becomes the mirror of matter. And this quote gives us a path to follow. I do not argue, I contemplate. We don't have to like everything we see, but how are we holding it in consciousness and in heart? As wise warriors, we can take a step back, center ourselves prior to entering the fray. And this gives us, again, the opportunity to look past the appearance of things as they are and see and be willing to see the possibility of something new and different. Are you willing? So instead of getting angry over a situation, ask, although I don't agree with this, what do I want to see here instead? What's Spirit's highest idea here? Be curious. Contemplate instead of arguing. I stand in the power and wholeness of Spirit that I am. So this month in the Science of Mind magazine, Reverend Michelle Medrano has written some very powerful dailies that we read and get inspired by and then do meditation around. And one of the things starts with a quote by Neville Goddard. And if you don't know who Neville Goddard is, he's one of my favorite metaphysicians from back in the 50s, 40s, something. Anyway, Neville Goddard. He said, if we would become as emotionally aroused over our ideals as we do our dislikes, we would ascend to the plane of our ideals as easily as we now sink to the level of our hates. Wow, that's a powerful statement, isn't it? She says, one of the easiest things in the world to do is look around at other people and the conditions of their lives and make them wrong. Judging is an observation made with an energy of something or someone being wrong, bad, inappropriate, or horrible. It is a harmful energy because it is negative and toxic. Not to them, but to you. The person it harms the most is the one doing the judging. Though judgment, through judgment, has ruined many relationships. What is fascinating, she says, is that it never works in terms of creating more peace between people. It never works as a tool for us to feel good about ourselves. Yet many of us are tempted to keep doing it over and over. We might actually trick ourselves into believing that if we make that judgment comment on a social media site, another person will change their ways. Or if we judge our kids for what they're up to, we will cause them to stop. Or if we judge ourselves harshly enough, we can change. Yet all judgment does is put a wedge between us and our true nature, and between us and other humans. Conversely, here is discernment. It is the ability to give input or feedback about a situation without charged negative feelings. Hear that? Again, we don't have to agree with something or someone's opinion. To begin a dialogue or effect change that supports all involved and establish a clear boundary. The key is the motivation within us. A motivation to wound, hurt, shame, or make wrong is us judging. A motivation to create more harmony may be discerning. Let's be discerning. Yeah, you just watch the news. Take a breath. So consider this. Is it possible to love and fight at the same time? Oh, it is. It's possible to love and fight at the same time. Well, did you know that most martial arts training is a practice of peace? Battle is only considered a last resort and a matter of self-defense. In Aikido, are there any Aikido masters here? Oh. It's a Japanese martial art, and they use techniques that redirect the force of aggression to harmonize with the encounter. I'm going to say that again. Redirecting the force of aggression to harmonize with the encounter. That's a really different way, isn't it? So can I redirect my thinking to harmonize with the truth of who I am? So I'm teaching a class right now called The Magic of Soul. And Patrick Harbula has a short little exercise that he talks about moving in life from our will, our human will, or surrender, the divine will. And he says there are times when it is necessary to focus our mind with the intent of our will, like a laser beam, for solving problems or doing tasks that require concentration. But ultimately, we want to learn to balance that will with a surrender to a higher will. Imagine a state of being perfectly balanced in your will and your surrender. Imagine doing your daily tasks filled with personal power, combined with the perfect peace of surrender to a higher power working through you. The higher power being the God of your understanding, the loving presence, spirit, God, source, whatever. So he invites us to do this little exercise. So I invite you to close your eyes, take a breath, and there's no right or wrong coming from this. And I want you to use your imagination. Imagine you have a bow and arrow, and 20 feet ahead of you is a target with rings and a bullseye in the center. Place the arrow against the string of the bow and use all of your might and willpower in your imagination and pull back the string, aim, and shoot the arrow. Notice where the arrow lands. Now place another arrow in the bow, this time completely surrender to a higher power. And using no will of your own, pull back the string, connect to that higher power, surrender, aim, and shoot the arrow. Again, notice where the arrow landed. Now place one final arrow in the bow, pull back the string, and affirm now a perfect balance between your will and surrender. And let the arrow fly. Again, notice where the arrow landed. What did you learn? In which case was your shot the most accurate? What does this say about the type of development that might be helpful to you at this point on your path? How can you use this metaphor to accomplish goals for which you are aiming, or to help you grow in any way? What's supporting you when you shoot your arrow? And you can open your eyes. I like that little exercise. It's a really good reminder of when I'm efforting too much in my ego, or if I'm allowing my soul presence or spirit to expand me. So it's important to remember a wise warrior knows that it's not solely their power that creates real change. The wise warrior recognizes that we are co-creators with the infinite presence. The wise warrior opens to life happening through us. The wise warrior remembers that we are directing the power and that this power is greater than all the stuff going on. Yeah. There's an old saying, I stopped telling God how big my problems are. And I started telling my problems how big my God is. Yeah. That's the warrior spirit. That's that courage and confidence in this too shall pass. I will get the support I need. When we stand as wise warriors, practitioners of truth, we align with that and become that infinite power for good. And it can't be just something we talk about or think about. It's something we do. It's something we be. We want to be that power of love and harmony, unity. The good news is that's who you already are. I told you last week, you are an expression of divine importance, each of you. So it's not really about becoming something we aren't, but about unbecoming who we aren't really. Did you follow that? And then spreading that light that we really are. Knowing that by sharing our light, we remind others of theirs. And fortunately, here at the Foothill Center, we have plenty of tools that help us do that. Meditation, sacred readings, study, affirmations. We have practices and methods and principles, classes, which equip us to be those mighty, wise warriors. So I ask you, moving through the ways of our old conditioning, takes a fierce warrior courage and focus. So how will you remember this week to keep that focus? Are you willing? How will you balance your will and surrender to the divine urge? Are you willing to mind your own mind? I stand in the power and wholeness of spirit I am. I stand in the power and wholeness of spirit I am. Can we say that together? I stand in the power and wholeness of spirit that I am. That's the truth. You, each of you, are wise, wise warriors. And I'm still a work in progress. And I'm grateful for that. So let's take that into prayer. Holly, thank you. So let's drop into that Sacred Heart once again. Recognizing in this holy moment of now that we call forth that spirit within us, Almighty God within us, that which is spiritual truth within us. We call it forth to establish in our consciousness and in our heart that connection, that union, that communion with the higher power, the source of all good, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. I am, you are, we are each individualized expressions of this one. We are each beautiful instruments in the divine symphony of life, playing our tune. And so I'm knowing and claiming today that there is a powerful shift, an energy, an opening to something greater in your life, whether it's the physical body, mental body, emotional body, spiritual body. That there's a balance in the wholeness and the healing that's happening. And again, we don't have to know how to make it happen. We simply make it welcome by saying, yes, use me. Oh God, use me. Use me as an instrument of peace. And so I'm knowing for each of us this week that we pay attention to our judgments, pointing fingers. Be discerning instead. Contemplate. Be open, receptive to a different idea. We are each wise warriors, and so I claim that for us this week, that we step into our truth. Release the old, be present with what is. Claim your power, and it's happening now. Because we are connected, always, always, always. And so it is with joy in my heart that I simply release my word into the infinite loving mind of God, this creative soil. We planted a seed today, and it is growing. Thank you, God. Thank you, life. And I let